Okay, that's recording now. If you want to take over, Mike and Ruth.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. We're actually talking to you from Lincoln, just not too far, well, within sound of the cathedral bells. And we have got a little bit of snow here, but it's clearing up now, thank goodness. Well, really, you've actually done like 75% of the Zoom training because A, you're at the meeting, you've clicked on a link, your webcams are working, and you've got a microphone working. And that's basically the hardest part of the whole business, isn't it? Sometimes you get people who haven't got the microphone working, they can't find the video, button at all, etc. Just a thought on clicking on the link. If you're using any sort of device, and you're doing a few Zoom things, it is worth downloading the Zoom app. There's a Zoom app for PCs, Macs, Androids, Apple, etc. Because Zoom does just work through your web browser, and it will just work even if you haven't got the app. But if you download the app, it means that you just get access to more settings. It also enables you to set up a free account, which you would need to do if you wanted to host a meeting yourself. All you need is a free account. You don't need to pay anything. So if you haven't got the app, do have a look. Just type in Zoom download app and it'll take you to the right place. A couple of pointers maybe about hardware, because let's just cover things that you can do before you even get into a meeting. Yeah, it's nice actually if you can wear headphones, because that sort of cuts out the likelihood of any feedback or extraneous sounds through your speakers if you're actually talking. It's not always possible. If you're just working from a laptop, it's all built in, but headphones are good. I say that, of course, and Ruth and I are not wearing headphones, but wearing two sets of headphones on the same screen is just a little bit more complicated, and I didn't want to make it too difficult for ourselves. But if it was just one of us, we would be wearing headphones. I'm looking around and it looks as if nobody is on a smartphone from what I can see. You can use a smartphone to access a meeting, and if you're just watching a meeting, not really taking part, then that's fine. But if you're going to be talking and presenting, I would recommend something with a bigger screen. One of the main difficulties with the smartphone is you can only see one speaker at a time, whereas currently I can see you all. And we have been in the odd meeting where the chair of the meeting has been on a smartphone, and of course can't see when people are putting their hands up and clearly wanting to speak, because they're only seeing one speaker. So do try and avoid that. If you are stuck with a smartphone, then try and put it on a stand, because smartphones, they fall off the cushions. People are always bending over to prop them up, and then they go sideways, and yeah, we've had them all. They've been on the floor. So yeah, try and make sure they're not going to fall over if you do have to use one. So just as I say, looking around, you're all on devices of some sort. You can tell a smartphone, of course, because you get a portrait view of people rather than the landscape view usually. So I think I'm going to pass you on to Ruth now. We're going to sort of swap, and she's going to do a little bit on making sure that other things are set up okay, and then we'll take a few questions.
Good morning, everybody, and I hope you're sitting comfortably, which is important actually in terms of delivering any sort of presentation. And do make sure that you're facing the video screen. I know it can be quite tempting because you see the pictures of everybody else who's attending, to sort of look to perhaps to the left or to the right. But if you're the presenter, you do need to be facing the screen, the camera, yeah. If you've got a built-in mic in your computer, then you do need to be no less than 3 feet away so that people can hear you properly. And often, if people have issues with the sound, it can be because you've got a poor broadband link. So do make sure that if you're using a Wi-Fi device, you're either in the same room as your router or as near as you can possibly get. There isn't anything worse really than you're listening to a presentation and then the person cuts out and you miss 2 or 3 words in a particular sentence. In terms of where you're sitting, do be aware of the lighting, because I think that's particularly important, that you've got lighting on your face. You're not sitting with your back to the window, because that means that your entire face can be in shadow, and it's just that much more difficult for people to actually watch facial expressions, which we do automatically, don't we? Also make sure that there are no distractions like the back, whatever is behind you. It's always quite interesting, isn't it, to see where people are in terms of bookcases. We always like to see bookcases, but just make sure that it's not too distracting. And if what you could do is actually download a photo background. There are some on Zoom, or others that you can actually download. The National Trust at the moment has some with all sorts of different venues, you know, their houses. The very nice one of the library at Wimpole Hall, which is very good. And it is something obviously that you can download if you want to use that. Other distractions might be noises in the house, noises off, if you like. And do make sure that you close the door of whatever room you're in, if you can. And also that you make it clear to anybody else in the house that you are doing a Zoom meeting. The last thing you want is people wandering in. And in fact, we've seen all sorts where people have tried to hide as they go past the person who's doing the meeting, but they haven't quite bent low enough so that you see their back or their faces as they're actually skipping past. The worst case was when we had a lady who was doing a presentation, excuse me, and halfway through, she said, "I'm terribly sorry, I'll just have to leave you because my dog is misbehaving in the corner," and proceeded to disappear away from the screen whilst she sorted the dog out. And it doesn't really look very professional, does it? Another thing you might want to do actually is just put a do not disturb sign on the door so that people don't actually interrupt. We have talked about lighting, which we, you know, is an important thing. So perhaps just if we have a look round at where people are sitting and in terms of how clearly we can see we can actually see you. I think most people are fine, aren't they?
Looking good. It's just Margaret is a little bit in the dark, but you can do something about that. You don't need to do it now.
No.
You're fine. But if you were giving a talk, even just maybe a lamp behind your not shining in your face, but making more light in front there. And
well, I've
Catherine
actually
is
got the curtains almost closed because of the bright sun coming in
yes,
through the window.
yes. You need to
see the screen.
But fortunately, we haven't got anybody.
It's always a problem.
Yeah, we haven't got anybody with a bright window behind them because well, we did have yesterday. And Catherine, you're a little bit half in the dark, but once again, if you were giving a talk somewhere, maybe just put a lamp in front where your machine is, and that will give you light. We fortunately have our window to the left here,
yeah.
And you can see it's really giving us a lot of life. Ben, good morning there. You've managed to get on. Never fear, if you need to ask questions, I'm sure we'll be able to catch up. So any questions or issues that you want to bring up at this stage, or things that you're concerned about in terms of maybe doing a presentation at a Zoom meeting?
How do you download the photo background, please?
Photo background. Maisie, for her sins, is going to show you that in a couple of minutes, Alan.
Yeah, I've got it prepared, don't worry.
Excellent. There we are, you see, all set up for it.
How do you get to see everybody rather than just the main picture on the floor at the top?
Yeah, if you go up to the top right, Steve, and where you
Yeah.
might see the word view,
Yeah,
just click on view and it'll give you two options. Speaker view, which
Yeah.
is the one with the big screen, but the second one is gallery view.
yeah.
Just click onto that one.
Oh, there you go. How
And you should
nice.
see lots of people. Yeah. It tends
Amazing,
to
isn't it?
tends to default to speaker view. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
if you want to see a lot of people, it's amazing how many people they can squeeze on the screen. I think we've seen like 45 people on one screen. They get a bit small, but yeah, it's still
It's still only showing 9.
That's us. Hang on a minute. We've got you might, if you're on a small screen, Stephen, you might be able to scroll down, and it'll show you more.
It says 1 of 2. Yeah, so
Yeah, there's another page,
Yeah.
if you like.
so I can get 9. I can get 2 lots of 9,
Right.
but on 2 separate screens. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but
But I can't get everybody on one screen.
If you maybe later on have a check in your settings, because you might be set up only to show a certain number, and you can actually tick a box and show 49 on the screen.
Okay.
It's a bit further in the settings. Catherine.
Thank you.
Is Stephen using a tablet or or a laptop?
A laptop.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
It's just if you're using a tablet, usually that it does only show 9 at a time.
Yes.
Otherwise, they
Uh-huh.
get too small.
It tends to vary. Okay, so everybody's good.
Are you going to tell us about, sorry, it's Margaret. Are you going to tell us about sharing a screen
Yes,
later
we
on? Thank you.
Yep. Right, I'm going to pass us back to Maisie, and she's going to show us some resources. Oh, no, I'm not going to pass you back to Maisie. I thought we'd already done that bit. Ruth's going to tell you a little bit more about preparing for your presentation.
I think as with any presentation, it's always useful if you can practice beforehand so that you're confident with the material that you're using. And there's that old adage, the 5 Ps. Proper presentation prevents poor performance. A bit of a tongue twister, but I think it's actually very valid. And particularly, I think, for doing Zoom events, if you're nervous about using Zoom and presenting to camera, then it's worth actually practicing your presentation to camera. If you go into Zoom and choose the orange button, certainly for us it's on the left hand side, which says new meeting, and if you put your audio and your video on, then you will see yourself as everybody would do if you were giving a presentation, and it's just a chance for you to run through that and see how you get on. Also, you might want to ask a friend to help you, so set up a Zoom meeting with them, go through your presentation, and then get some constructive feedback from them. And again, all of that will just give you a little bit more confidence about doing the talk. Now, Maisie, I think you're going to show us some resources that Shared Interests have got available. And just to remember that if you're going to use resources, make sure that you've watched them or read them 2 or 3 times so that you've got some idea of the sorts of questions that people are actually going to ask. Over to you, Maisie.
Thank you. Yes, so I'll just quickly share my screen, and I'm going to go to the resource library now. Can everybody see that? thumbs up if you can see the resource library. So yeah, the links to this, they do expire. I'm sure you may have heard us tell you this, but if you haven't got the link or if it's not working, just email volunteers@shared-interest.com and we'll send you a brand new link that should work. There's lots of things on here. We've recently updated it. So you've got all the past newsletters, did you know articles with lots of facts and case studies in there. We've also got all the new infographics. So these are up-to-date information for the past year. So some of your old ones might be out of date now and you can go through and update those. And also, I know somebody's mentioned sharing a background already. So if I go to social media toolkit, and then if I click on Zoom, you'll see there's these 3 background options, which we've used on our online events that our staff members have used these when they're giving talks. They are a good option for some people if you don't want to show the inside of your house, which is fair enough. You can use these and they completely blank out the background, but we were discussing this yesterday. They're not always the best, and you can disappear into the background, or if your computer's not a new model, it might just not have the capacity to work, but they're there for you to play with. So by all means, have a go. I'll demonstrate now what they look like. So I'll just stop sharing the resource library. So because I'm in the middle of the talk, it's slightly different. I go down to the bottom next to the stop video icon, and there's a little arrow there that I can click on. And then there's a few options. And one of them is choose virtual background. When you're on there, there's a little plus sign. So to add a virtual background, you would download the picture from the resource library, save it to your desktop or somewhere where you can easily find it, add it onto there, and then it'll appear as an option. So if I just select that one now, you can see I've got, you can't see where I am, I've just got shared interest behind me, but it's not, as we mentioned, the best. You can sort of disappear into them, but it's an option and you can make you feel a bit more professional. So we'd encourage you to use them if you'd like to. Before the meeting, you can set up your background in the settings. So have a play with that. And if you get stuck, obviously get in touch with me and I can go through it in more details. It's hard to demonstrate it while I'm in a Zoom chat. But it is in the settings as an option. Does anyone have any questions about that or about the resource library? Yeah, Catherine.
Just clarify where the settings are. Are they when you set up the meeting?
Yes, so
I can't see them on the screen.
What I've got in the top right hand corner of my homepage on Zoom, and I've downloaded Zoom, so I've got it as a program on my computer, is my initials and a little camera, and it's in a green box. And if I click on that, there's a settings option there, and there's lots of settings within there. And background and filters is one of the options. So you might have a few default backgrounds on there that you can play with as well. Desert islands and things.
Oh goodness, I didn't know all that was there. Okay.
I should be wearing a swimsuit now for the
There
one.
you go, Alan.
Well, you're looking good there. It's a bit windy, Alan, but I bet you it's warmer.
You can even choose the colour of your little hand, your little thumbs up sign if you want.
You can?
Yeah.
So I've got a reaction.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries. All right, I'll pass back to Mike. Oh, sorry, Susan. Yeah.
Yes, could you just give again the you gave an email address, I think, for getting to the resource library.
That email address is just for contacting me, and then I can send you a link. Do you not have the current link for the resource library?
I'm not sure if I do or I don't.
I'll send you it after this meeting,
Yeah.
so you've got an up-to-date link. No worries.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I just
Oh, sorry, is Ben
I
trying
think
to
Ben's
talk?
wanting to say something, but he's
Just have to
muted.
unmute Ben. Oh, I'm struggling to unmute.
Yeah. I haven't got a link to the resource library, please.
Yeah, I'll send one out to everyone, and then at least you'll all have the up-to-date one. I'll do that after the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, if everybody's finished questions for the time being, I just wanted to say a little bit about actually giving your presentation or your talk. We've already said about the importance of using having eye contact with your audience, even though you don't actually get any sound from them. For example, at the moment, everybody is muted. And so don't forget from that point of view that if you're even if you're telling jokes, for example, or asides, you won't get the feedback in terms of laughter that you would do and that you would do normally. And with any presentation, just make sure that you go slowly. Often if you think you're going too slowly, you're about at the right pace. Now, I think most people like to use some sorts of notes when they're giving a talk. It's best not to have them on the desk because inevitably you have to look down in order to read them, which means that you're losing eye contact with your audience. But what we do is we use a board with our notes on, so that it's just below where the camera is, and we can just we can glance quickly at it without sort of breaking eye contact. You could actually put your notes on the screen so that you can see them. And if you're using a PowerPoint presentation, then you certainly have the option to use your notes because people are looking at the presentation, not actually at you. And just one other point about in this section about clothing. Just make sure that you're not wearing something that's particularly dazzling. Mike isn't wearing the same jumper he had yesterday.
Do you think more subtle today, Maisie? Do you think that's all right?
He had a very bright,
very bright.
A very bright jumper on yesterday. And I think the point is people can only see you from the waist up. So it is important that you're not wearing something that's actually going to distract people from listening. Any questions on that? I hope that's all fairly straightforward.
Susan's boiler man has obviously arrived. Yeah. Okay, we're going to go on and we're going to deal with sharing the screen. If I had the right notes, that would be good. If you look down at the bottom of your Zoom view, where the little buttons are and you've got the mute and the stop video, in the center there you'll find some other buttons, and one of them is share screen, and it's a bright green color. Yeah, has everybody got a bright green share screen? Next to chat. Yeah. Now you need to be careful with this. If you are attending a meeting that somebody else has organized, you might not have that share screen option because at some meetings they will have removed the permissions for people to share the screen. Mainly because in the early days people were sharing the screen and showing very inappropriate things just for fun, which is not actually for fun. So if you wish to share the screen, if you wish to show a PowerPoint presentation or a video or some photos, then you've got two options. The best option actually is to ask the organizer of the meeting if they will show the video and show the PowerPoint presentation for you, because it means you don't have to faff about with it, because it's a little bit more, you know, playing with the keyboard and things when really you're concentrating on giving your talk. So ideally, you want to be in a situation where you can just send them the video, send them the PowerPoint and say, could you show my video now? And they'll deal with it. Now, if you are having to do your own sharing the screen, first thing is before you even go into the Zoom meeting, just get the things that you want to use up on the screen in front of you. So if you're going to show a video, just load the video up so it's just sitting there ready to go. If you're going to do a PowerPoint presentation, load it up and run it so that it's on the first page, so it is ready to go. Because otherwise, you will see people, when they share the screen, they actually share their whole desktop. And you see everything that's on their desktop, which is often a mess. And then they have to find what they want to show you, and then they have to double click on it and whatever. It can take a minute to just get that sorted. And you might only have 5 minutes or 10 minutes to give your presentation. So try and have it all set up beforehand. Now, if you are set up, and hopefully I am, I hope. So early in the morning, I'm not sure if I've got everything organized, but I'm going to go now and I'm just going to click on share screen at the bottom. Now, when I do that, you can't see this yet, is that we get a window comes up, and on the window, it will show you all the things that you have running on your computer, including the desktop. And then I've got two things running. I've got a photo program running with a photo, and I've got a PowerPoint presentation running. I might have had a video running. Be careful with videos, because if they've got sound, then you will see when you share, and it's the only way of getting to it, unfortunately, is you do the share, you get to this window giving you choices, and it has a tick box for share the sound as well. Okay, normally it doesn't share the sound automatically. You will sometimes hear the sound of video because it's coming through the people's speakers and being picked up on the microphone. But ideally, click the share sound, because that actually sends the sound through Zoom from your computer. So it's a much better way of doing it. What I'm going to do is I'll just choose one of these. I'm going to choose a picture and I'm going to click on share. And if we're very lucky, you will be seeing the picture. It's, there we are. That was in the days when we used to go out. I can hardly remember it. Funnily enough, it was exactly this time last year, February 2020. We did an information day. And of course, I can see you all down the right-hand side. The strange thing about sharing your screen is that all the controls for the Zoom controls all go to the top of the screen now. My mute, my stop video, instead of being at the bottom left, are all at the top in the middle. I don't know why they do that, but anyway, it does, so just be worth watching. Now, if I want to switch to something else, the easiest way of doing it and the simplest is just to stop the share. There's a red button for stop the share. And then I'm going to go back to share screen again. And this time I'm going to choose another presentation. Here we are. Now this is actually a PowerPoint presentation, but it's our next family quiz. So, your starter for 10 is, can anybody identify the white person who's missing from this picture? Come on, you can do it. It's fairly recent, as you can tell. Any guesses? You'll need to unmute yourselves. No, it's a politician, needless to say, but a different politician from all the ones you can see. If you look at the clothing. Come on, have a guess. Okay.
Is it a woman?
It is a woman, yes.
Still don't know who.
It's a prime minister.
It's the New Zealand Prime Minister.
It is the New Zealand Prime Minister, yeah.
Oh, good.
There she is. Can't remember her name. Anyway, that's for my family in a couple of weeks' time.
Jacinda.
we're not competitive about it. It's very relaxed. Well, not really. So here we are, PowerPoint presentation. Once again, we can stop the share and we go back to normal. So if you are doing some sharing, have it all set up beforehand. Once again, it's one of these things that you need to practice, and you can practice by just starting a meeting just of yourself and literally using the share facility. Make sure you can find it. It's not always that intuitive. I had to spend 2 hours going through that with one of my elder brothers before he really cottoned on to how it works. But it is an incredibly useful tool doing a presentation, especially online. It's possibly even easier than it is in reality, because sometimes if you're giving a talk somewhere, actually showing a video, you know, the screen's rubbish, it's too sunny, the projector isn't working properly, you can't plug your laptop in because it's out of date, all sorts of things. So you end up maybe just giving them the talk, whereas if you're online, those sort of facilities are all available automatically. So yeah. Okay, any questions at this point?
Yeah, Mike. Hi. When you went to shared screen, I had a limited number of screens on the right side.
Yeah.
Okay, so my audience was reduced if I was presenting from 11 to whatever it was, 5 or something. So if I'm presenting to, let's say, 20 different people, will that sort of rotate as to depending on who's speaking at the time, and do I remain at the top?
You should remain at the top, or you should be visible to people, but it is less important, because obviously what you really want them doing is watching the screen, and they will be watching the screen. So it's actually a point where people are not watching you, which, you know, you might think that's a good thing. And it is possible to scroll down, but it's also possible that people might only see themselves, because Zoom is a little bit weird when you share the screen. You never quite know where the pictures of people are going to be. Sometimes they'll be along the top. Sometimes they'll be down the right. Sometimes if you just see yourself on the right-hand side, or just one person, there is a little blue box at the top of their window. You can click on that and it'll show all the ones down the side. But it's temperamental. When you do it, you never quite know what's going to happen. It's partly because when you share the screen, the screen goes into full screen mode, and that can move things about. So be wary of that maybe whilst you're doing it, you know, concentrate on the sharing the screen, but don't leave it sat there when you carry on with something else. So stop sharing it so you can get back to everybody seeing everybody. Just share it when you need it. Because I know people, we've been at places where they've just left the last slide and then carried on, and you think, no, come on, stop that. We want to see everybody's faces again. So yeah, that's.
And can I
carry on from that point then?
Yeah.
So those of you who've done presentations on Zoom, I mean, if we were doing it with an audience face to face, quite a lot of us, I expect, would encourage questions as we went through, so that we weren't talking for 10 or 15 minutes or whatever. But what is people's experience on Zoom? Is it better then to share the screen, go through it all, then unshare, and then have questions and answers?
Can I just interrupt there, because my next session is appropriately on answering questions.
Well, you can carry on with that. Yeah.
So perhaps if we take other questions now, and then we'll go on to that. Oh, I'll do that now.
Do that now, and then we'll
why not?
have some more questions.
So it may be that you do your presentation, and because everybody is muted, it makes sense for you to complete your presentation and then take questions at the end. And a bit like we've done here, the host organizer may well then unmute people so that they can ask their questions. It might be that the host organizer asks people to use the chat facility, and we're going to have a look at that in a minute, so that people put up questions during the course of the presentation, and the host organizer will look through those and then ask you those particular questions. And if they are asking people to use chat, you just get on with your presentation. The little boxes will pop up at the bottom where people are posing questions, but just ignore those. Get on, as I say, just get on with your presentation. And it may be that there's not sufficient time to answer all of those, in which case you can get the organizer to send you a copy of them, and then you can go back to them with the answers. And that's also true, inevitably, you're doing a talk and people may ask you questions that you don't know the answer to, in which case, obviously, you say, sorry, but I'll have to go back to shared interest and perhaps check and then send them an email. Does that answer your questions, or anything else on? Any questions on questions?
I think the thing about questions is that you do need to make an actual space for them. Whereas you're right, if you were just giving a talk in a room and somebody just started asking a question, you'd probably deal with it. But when you're on a Zoom thing, yes, often everybody's muted anyway. So it's useful to say, right, I'm going to do my talk. Maybe, you're not going to talk for, well, you certainly don't want to talk for 10 minutes anyway, because that's probably too long online. But you can split it up into sessions, or you can split it up and say, we're going to do a video here, and then we'll have a few questions after that, and then I'm going to just tell you about such and such or whatever. So build in some question time when you're putting your presentation together, but try not to have constant interruptions, because that is difficult for the host to manage. And yes, Ruth's briefly mentioned the chat. You should be able to see the chat once again at the bottom of your screen. If you bring up the various mute stop video, and then in the middle there'll be a chat, and you'll see it's for most people at the moment it'll have a little red bubble on top of it showing the number of chat questions or whatever, and you can click on that and it'll tell you who's written them and whatever. Sometimes chats get so full I find it distracting. That's Vivian, absolutely right. And that's really important, I think, to, if you're doing a presentation, ignore the chat. Talk to the host person before and say, I'm going to ignore the chat, could you deal with the chat? And if there's some good questions, the host will pick them up and the host will feed you the questions in the appropriate question time. Because you just can't keep, if there's 40 people and they start putting stuff on there, it's impossible, and you get totally distracted from it. So always do not try and deal with the chat. Let the host deal with that, or somebody else. If there's two of you or there's more people, one person could be responsible for dealing with the chat, because sometimes there are questions that have nothing to do with your presentation. They're, when are we going to break for a cup of coffee? And the host will be able to say, oh yeah, it'll be like 11:30. So it's nothing to do with your presenting. So be careful. Vivian, you might like to unmute yourself. You're still muted. Yeah, you are.
Sorry, yes.
That's better.
No, sometimes as a participant, I find the chat distracting. I was on a very interesting Zoom yesterday, and the chat was interesting too, but distracted you from the speakers. So
Yes.
I think it's got good and bad sides about it. I can certainly see as the presenter, the chat would be an excellent tool to look back on afterwards.
Yes, and that, it is the host can save the chat and actually provide you a file with with the questions on. If the host is really doing their job well, or they've got somebody managing the chat, then they will look through it. And sometimes, you know, people have very similar questions. And if they're good, they'll be able to combine those questions into one question for you that will cover a lot of people's questions. But it's another one of these aspects that it's tricky to balance all the balls all the time. So sharing the screen, reading chat, giving a talk, it's a lot of stuff to do. We did a Zoom presentation before Christmas, which required a PowerPoint presentation that was running. It had a number of different speakers, so people had to be muted and unmuted, and one or two other things. And I was sort of hosting it, and even I got to the end. I thought, "Phew, that was an hour's worth of real stress. I'm not doing that again." I would get somebody else to do the PowerPoint and get somebody else to do the chat, because too many things, and you just want to concentrate on doing a really good 5-minute plug for shared interest, really, without all the distractions of technicalities. So yeah, Margaret.
Ruth mentioned earlier, I think, when we were talking about questions, unmuting or unmuting everybody as the host. So even if we're hosting with the Zoom and we have a chair, you know, in the group who can deal with chat and so on, how do we do that?
Only the host can unmute everybody.
Yeah.
Or indeed mute everybody. It's a host facility. Now, if you were in a group and you wanted to be able to do that, maybe share those things, the host can actually give you co-host permissions, and that then allows you to mute and unmute people. And that is all done from the button that says participants that you'll see next to the chat. If you just click on participants, you'll get a window open, and it'll show all 11 of us. I'm just doing that myself, and I can scroll down, and it will show you that Maisie is the host, so she has got extra powers, extra superpowers. That's how we look at it, and it will show you who is muted and who is on a video. And actually, if you do a right hand, if you just do a click on there, it won't come up with anything. But if Maisie clicked on there, she gets an extra menu list, and it will do things like unmute, mute.
Yeah, I've got that. So if I wanted, I could.
Yeah, and possibly even kick out of the meeting. I think that might be an option these days. You know.
Now, I've only got invite when I look at.
Yes.
Click on that arrow.
If you've has it come up with a very small window?
I've got participants.
Oh, you click on that. Don't click on the arrow. Click actually on the box that says participant.
Ah, sorry,
Margaret, and then it'll open up the window.
Ooh.
And you'll see everybody somewhere.
Right, okay.
Whole list,
yeah.
Whole list of people.
And then I've got, yes, that's right, mute and then more, it says with an arrow, yeah.
That would be for you, but if you had co-hosting, you would be able to do that for everybody.
Okay.
And it is a useful feature. And yes, what would normally happen is that when people unmute themselves, they actually do come to the top of that list, if it's a very big list, so you can see the people who are unmuted. And if you're trying to track down somebody who has left their microphone on and we're getting feedback, then that's one way of doing it, because occasionally you can get very bad feedback from one person. The speakers are not quite in the right place, the microphone's not doing what it should. And that's often why people say, please just, you know, mute yourselves. But at this point, in this sort of meeting, you could all probably unmute whilst we take questions. But it's easier if people just manage that. Susan.
Could I just ask a question? Maybe you covered it when I was just dealing with my plumber, but when I click on the share screen button, it comes up with a whole lot of, it says basic advanced at the top and I'm on basic, and it comes up with a whole lot of possibilities, most of which have got nothing in them. So how do you, you may have covered it already, in which case I'll look at the recording, but how do you actually get something in there that you want to share?
What you do is, before you even start your Zoom meeting, get the programs you want loaded up on your computer in front of you in a window. If they're sitting there in a window and then you go into Zoom, when you do the shared screen, those ones will appear as well. And you can just click on them.
On there at the moment, so that's
so that's try that out.
Okay, I'll try that out. Thank you.
Yeah. Colin.
Hi, Mike. I was just wondering, if you give your PowerPoint presentation to the host to handle for you, do you have to ask them to change the slides, or can you do that yourself?
Yes. No, that's the classic. Can I have the next slide, please? that you hear people doing, because you can't control it yourself. It's not ideal if it's a very big PowerPoint presentation, but if it's just 10 slides, then it's simpler to say, we'll go on to the next slide, and the host will do it. Any more questions at this point?
Catherine's got a question.
Catherine.
Right, you've been talking about having a host and giving the presentation. I was just thinking, if you were doing it yourself and the meeting to whom you were giving a presentation didn't have anybody who was feeling confident to do that, would you be able to have a host a separate host, like my husband could do it in? And would they have to have a different gadget in a different room, or would that actually work?
Yes, you could do that, or as we might mention before we finish, if you were doing a shared interest one, you could actually contact another volunteer and see if they would come on to the meeting with you, or from the organisation, and do that aspect of it. Yeah, you do get the situation where people are running two Zoom sessions for the same meeting from the same house, and they'll be in different rooms. It's tricky if you're in the same room, because then you really do get feedback issues and stuff. But it's possible. But of course, the nice thing about Zoom is it actually doesn't matter where people are, in the world. If you can maybe get, and sometimes it might be quite nice to do a presentation with two people, and then one of them can be responsible for the sharing, whilst the other one is doing the talking.
That sounds good. Maybe involve another volunteer then.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Margaret.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about saving chat. I know that it disappears at the end of the session unless you do something clever. So how do you save chat to?
That's something that only the host can do.
Yeah.
So you can't do it yourself. And quite honestly, I can't answer that question, because I haven't looked at that recently.
I can answer that question. So as the host, at the bottom, there's 3 dots in a box in the bottom right hand corner. You simply click on it, and the first option is save chat.
Oh.
So whoever's the host, it would be no problem for them to save the chat. If you can't figure it out, you could always highlight it or copy it and paste it into a Word document as well, which would mean you'd have the questions saved. So,
sorry, where are the 3 buttons?
I don't know if they'll appear on yours, Margaret.
No, only if you're at the host.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, thank you.
I can offer another idea. I have a small digital camera beside me. And if anything comes on, rather than scurry to make notes, or in the case of chat, copy down the questions, I just take a photograph, and I've got an immediate record. It's quite useful, that.
Yeah. We actually have another webcam that sometimes is useful for actually filming things at the same time, or showing them on the screen if it's something on the table. But that's getting a little bit complicated. Vivian.
No, this is a very basic question. You know, about showing another presentation. You said have it ready. Do you mean, supposing I had some slides or some photos I wanted to show, would I have them in the bottom bar on the computer where I've got things I want to access?
Yes, if you like.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
so I put them there.
Yeah. When you
just click on them as if it was a document I wanted to look at.
That's right, yeah. But leave them open. You know, you can minimize them so they're down at the bottom, but leave them open, because then Zoom will pick up any applications on your computer that are open. It will show you, and you can just choose that, and then you just get that application. Just like when I went into the PowerPoint one, you didn't see me go to the folder and double click on it to run it, which you would if you just show people your desktop. It's just it just saves time, and it's a little bit better. And when you've got to the end of all that, if you've survived, then it's probably a good idea to just sit down and have a little think and see, how did it go? We always have a little review after any presentation. If you had any problems with the equipment, maybe make a note of that and see how you could work it out for the next time, or ask somebody. And maybe go back to the host of the event and say, how do you think it went? You know, any you know, reasonable feedback from people, because they will be watching it, and sometimes it's useful for any presentation, actually, not just on Zoom, to get a little bit of feedback from people as to how things go, so you can improve for next time. Albeit you may well be perfect, in which case you don't need to worry about that bit. Okay, we'll pass you back to Maisie to deal with any final questions.
Yes,
we're just about
running
on time, aren't we?
Yeah, good timekeeping. Thank you so much. I think you covered a lot there. It's a lot to take in. I was just going to mention one more thing, which I've found. I always fall into the trap when I'm sharing my screen. I'll share the window and then I'll be talking and I'll forget that I have to stop sharing and reshare something else, and I'll just go on it on my screen and I can see it, but the person on the other end of the Zoom is still stuck on the previous thing that I've already shared. So you must remember to stop share and then do the same process again, share screen and select the different window. So if you were sharing a YouTube video or something, you must do it that way, because you might not realize, and you could, you know, people are very polite and they don't always say they can't see what you're seeing. But yeah, just to finish off, so I just wanted to mention as well, if you do have any talks with local groups, whoever they may be, and you do get a chance to mention shared interest at all, please let us know. We'd love to keep a record of any activities, you know, however small. It's all really useful. We know it's been a difficult year for anything at all, so we're not expecting much, but just to know that there's things going on, we always really appreciate it, and we can just keep a little log. And obviously Fair Trade Fortnight is coming up, so you might get some requests to do bits and bobs. So if you just email me or Alan about that. And yeah, as was mentioned, if you needed another volunteer's help with a talk, get in touch with us and we can see if anyone's free and available to help you out. And it's always nice to connect with other people as well. But yeah, I think that's everything I needed to mention. Yeah, so thank you so much, Mike and Ruth. Really appreciate it. And it was lovely to see everyone today. You're all looking really well.
Could I just ask one last question?
Yeah.
We're having this Fair Trade Coffee Morning on Zoom for Wiltshire Federation of WIs. And I've proposed to them that we show a short video about what shared interest does. So if I look in the resource library, I mean, I don't want it to be more than about 5 minutes, because this is an informal coffee morning and we're going to show fair trade products and have a cup of coffee, and maybe people will have their piece of cake together. But I thought it would be a really good opportunity to show people, you know, just really basic things about what shared interest does. So, I mean, I've seen on the internet, I've seen on your website, I've seen various little videos that you can show. So if you could recommend to me, you know, what you thought would be a really good one,
Yes,
that would be good.
Yeah, how long did you say you wanted it to be, Susan?
Well, only about 5 minutes or something like that, or we might have 2 of 5 minutes, but it's supposed to be a time for people to have a chat and exchange ideas, but learn about fair trade. And I thought, we had a little video about some aspect of shared interest work, or just basically what shared interest does, because most of them probably don't know. That would be really interesting. And I have noted recently there's been quite a lot about women cocoa farmers, and as we're a women's organisation, that kind of thing might be of really good interest for them. And it's a free event, so there's no barrier to people coming.
Yeah, that's great. I'll have a look through what we've got, and
but that would be a great help to me. And then I mean, nobody's going to give a presentation or anything, but it's just, well, I just would introduce it and say, this is about shared interest, just to give people a bit more information, which is the start really of piquing their interest and perhaps getting involved.
Definitely. And as we've mentioned, with that, I would definitely do a little practice before the morning, practice sharing your screen so that you make sure that you can hear the sound.
The host of the meeting is very experienced at this, so all I need to do is to give her the
oh, okay, brilliant.
And so I don't have to worry about sharing.
Great.
She'll do it for me, but I would need to give her something to do. But I was really interested this morning, because even if somebody else is going to do it for me, it's useful to know what the possibilities are and what the pitfalls are as well. So,
absolutely.
Anyway, so thank you so much for and to Ruth and Mike it was really interesting to be part of this. So thank you.
No, thank you.
No, it's been really good fun.
Thank you, everyone. I'll let you go and rest your eyes now. It's a long old session.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Very helpful.
Very useful.
Thank you.
Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.